What treasure is large enough to bring a young Franklin Delano Roosevelt to the island with a pick and shovel in hand? Or cause the great matinee idol Errol Flynn to leave the luxury of Hollywood for the cold and mud of an obscure island? Is this the repository of the world's greatest single treasure, or just some 18th century engineer's idea of a practical joke?
Just off the coast of Nova Scotia lies a tiny blip of land called Oak Island. It would be hard to imagine a more nondescript piece of real estate. Yet here on this mile-long, half-mile-wide chunk of dirt that sticks up out of the Atlantic Ocean barely 35 feet, fortunes have been squandered, and so far, 6 lives have been lost. In search of what? That's one of the more amazing parts of this mystery. No one even knows what they're looking for. Oh, there are theories, to be sure, but the bottom line is nobody knows. That's what makes the mystery of Oak Island one of the most convoluted, puzzling, strange, yet true stories we have ever encountered. It all began in 1795. A teenager by the name of Daniel McGinnis noted a depression under the outstretched branch of one of the large oak trees from which the island originally took its name. Daniel and 2 friends he had persuaded to join him quickly discovered that indeed someone at some time in the distant past had gone to a great deal of trouble to dig the pit they were now uncovering. Every 10 feet they encountered another oak floor solidly anchored in the sides of the pit. By the time they had reached the 3rd floor, and in spite of dizzying visions of buried treasure, they realized they were in over their heads, both literally and figuratively. Curiously, that seemed to end the boys' adventure. They just gave up. For the next 7 years, the pit the boys had only begun to uncover lay undisturbed. But rumors abounded, some of them quite sinister. There was talk of a curse on Oak Island, which might not be as far-fetched as it sounds when you begin to learn a bit about the island's tragic history.
Well, one of the main legends is that there is a pack of dogs on the island with fiery eyes that roam the island to protect the treasure pit. Also, a crow that may be the embodiment of some other spirit. Supposedly, he watches over the money pit. You've also got the legend that the treasure will never be found until 7 people have died. And so far, 6 have died. But perhaps the most famous legend is that no one will find the treasure until every oak tree on the island is gone. As of right now, there's 1.
Yet in spite of legends and curses, men keep pouring their lives and fortunes into this hole in the ground. Why? Some researchers think it is nothing more than a sinkhole. If that's true, it's a sinkhole that has fooled a lot of people. The boys eventually convinced others that there was something of value buried on the island, and in 1803 they returned to the original pit, but as hired hands with the Onslow Company. The Onslow Company brought to the island a full complement of men and equipment, believing they could quickly find whatever treasure there was to be found. The crew began to dig, McGinnis and his 2 friends among them, and amazingly, they continued to find layers of oak logs at each new 10-foot depth. But they also encountered layers of charcoal, putty, and a fibrous material that fired their imagination. It was strands of coconut fiber used by ships to protect valuable cargo. To this point, they had found only clay and oak logs, but the coconut fibers gave them new hope. Since there wasn't a coconut tree within 1,500 miles, someone from far distant shores had to have brought it there.
Hiram Walker, who was working in the money pit at the time, told his granddaughter that he saw bushels of a substance that was later identified as coconut fiber being taken out of the shaft. Now that was strange, because the nearest coconuts were 1,500 miles away.
Here, too, at about 90 feet, they uncovered a large flat stone with 2 lines of strange geometric symbols inscribed on it. an inverted triangle, followed by an inverted triangle with 2 diagonal lines through it, followed by a slash with tiny circles above and below the line, another triangle, and a downward pointing arrow. The inscription was shown to a language professor at the University of Halifax, who translated the markings as saying, 40 feet below, 2 million pounds are buried, a translation that would be confirmed years later by a reference to Edgar Allan Poe. But that was not the only translation.
The writing, translated to the English, is from the writings of the Coptic Christians. Now, the Coptic Christians were very early Christians, and they were lineally descended from the ancient Egyptians. The inscription is translated by Dr. Barry Fell, and it reads, "The people shall not forget the Lord. To offset the hardships of winter and the onset of plague, the Arif, he shall pray to the Lord." Now, and Arif was a sub-priest in the Coptic religion.
Harry Marshall, who helped to carry the stone out of the shaft, said it was not like anything he'd ever seen in Nova Scotia. In fact, he thought it was a form of porphyry. Not very common, but you can find it in Egypt.
Is it really possible that Egyptians reached North America in the distant past? How did a rare kind of rock found almost exclusively in Egypt find its way to Oak Island and into this enigmatic pit? The questions without answers keep mounting, yet it is only now that the mystery of the island really begins.